Hello everyone and welcome to this week's edition of Sports Psych Saturday. My name is Tyson, filling in this week for Brad Wall. On this week's edition of Sports Psych Saturday, what we're going to be talking about is pre-performance routines. So first question that we have to ask is, what is a pre-performance routine? So pre-performance routine is a sequence of task-relevant thoughts and actions that an athlete engages in systematically to ensure that they are able to be prepared to perform at their best. All right? So with the purpose of this in mind, like I mentioned, is to optimize the mindset in which the athlete has coming into their event to help them give them confidence and ensure that they are ready and prepared to perform at their best. So with this, there are a number of different things that we need to consider when it comes to establishing our routine. And the first, and we tend to think about in two different ways. We want to think about the behavioral or the actions that we do, as well as the cognitive or the thoughts that we are thinking in preparation for our event. So actions, we want to be focused on actively preparing ourselves for a task at hand. Whether this be stretching, whether this be utilizing hand-eye coordination drills, footwork drills, things of that nature. We want to activate our body to ensure it is at the best, in the best shape, ready to go for when the whistle blows and the game starts. Same thing we want to think about with our thoughts. We want to be able to put ourselves in a positive and engaged mindset, eliminating negative thoughts and ensuring that we are prepared and ready to go for that game, both mentally and physically. So next up, what we're going to talk about is some tips for you as an athlete to utilize when creating your own routine. So every athlete should have a routine of some form coming in, whether it be before the game, activities during the game, or post-game. So we want to ensure that we have a routine, to develop that confidence in ourselves and be ready to go. So the first tip is to make sure that we're individualizing our routine for you. You can't take somebody else's routine and utilize it and all of a sudden think it's going to work for you. When developing a routine, we want to make sure it's specifically tailored to what your goals are for your task or event. For myself, I was a former goaltender in hockey, so when I think of my routines, I wanted to make sure that I was both ready physically and mentally before the game, as well as I had numerous different routines that I engaged in throughout the game to serve as a mental reset for when I was ready when I needed them. All right? So the next step that we're going to talk about is starting simple. So on the board behind me, I have one of my on-ice routines that I engaged in prior to the game. So it was worked on over the course of probably about 4 or 5 years. I spent developing and tailoring this routine for my sport. It did not start and look as detailed as this. It was very simple at the start. So when I was engaging and working through my own routine, I started simple, working on developing more and more complex skills over time. The next tip that we want to have is be consistent. So routine and good performances coming out of routine are not going to happen immediately. So we want to be engaging in that routine consistently. If we engage in the routine once and it doesn't work, and we all of a sudden scrap it and try and do a new routine, it's not going to inspire the same confidence as if we stick with it for a period of time and allow it to develop, finding things and just fine-tuning as we go through. Which leads into our fourth tip, which is be flexible. All right? Routines that are completely rigid and leave no room for flexibility can oftentimes elicit some anxiety within the athlete. So we want you to be flexible and realize that not every single time that before the game, you're going to have the opportunity to engage in the routine as perfectly as you would like. So remember, be flexible, keep an open mind when it comes to our routine. All right, so looking more and more detailed at my routine that I've got here on the board, we can see one of my things that I did a lot of stretching higher up in my off-ice plan. So when my on-ice plan came to be, I focused mainly more on technical skills that I wanted to ensure were sharp prior to that game. All right, so thank you once again for tuning in, and we'll see you next week.